Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
Back in the first season of Jonathan Bird's Blue World, I visited shark researcher Kenesa Duncan, who was working with baby hammerhead sharks to learn how fast they grow. Her work with the sharks was made much easier because she could put them into a relaxed state called tonic immobility. But will it work underwater? Meet Neil Harvey.
It's just practice. It's just repetitive practice over and over and over.
Neil is a world-renowned expert in shark tonic immobility. It's his job. Neil is a shark handler at Stewart Cove's Dive Bahamas. It's hard to believe what a cool job he has. Every day he introduces divers to wild sharks. And part of his job is to show people the gentler side of these big fish. Neil shows divers how wild sharks can be pet like puppies if they're first put into tonic immobility. Neil has a remarkable rapport with these sharks. Would it be possible for me to learn a little bit of Neil's amazing technique? To find out, cameraman Tim and I fly down to Nassau, Bahamas. Our mission? To meet Neil and get some personalized instruction in shark tonic immobility. On the dock, Neil and I discuss the plan for the day.
We're going to go out south to Uatech buoy out in the middle of the trench, try to bait for some silky sharks.
He explains that the best way to start is for me to try tonic immobility with smaller sharks. Juvenile silky sharks are easy to put into tonic immobility in the classic way, by flipping them upside down. This technique only works with small sharks. The trick is finding some silky sharks. We load the boat for a trip way offshore to a place where silky sharks are sometimes seen.
Got it?
Captain Cleejay sets a course for the U.S. Navy Octopus buoy. It's more than 30 miles offshore in the open ocean where silky sharks live. Part of the Navy's advanced submarine testing range, the Octopus buoy is tethered in 5,000 feet of water. Because large floating objects in the open sea often attract marine life just like reefs, sometimes there are silky sharks here, but overfishing has severely reduced the population. Neil throws some chum into the water while Captain Cleejay makes some fishy snacks. We suit up for a shallow dive in deep water. The water is an endless sea of blue, and there's nothing here. Perched on the hanging chum box, Neil patiently breaks off little chunks of fish to make a trail of bite-sized shark snacks leading right to us. His efforts pay off. After what seems like an eternity, a single silky shark shows up. I film her at a distance as she circles us, munching the bait. But she's on to us. Neil just can't seem to catch her. We chum patiently for 2 hours, but finally we have to admit we've been skunked. Back aboard the boat, we head for home. It's a long ride home with nothing to show for a day's work. And without the silkies as a warm-up, I'm going to have to jump straight to the much larger Caribbean reef sharks with no practice. The next morning, under cloudy skies, we load the boat and head out with Captain Denzel only a few hundred yards. This is where they feed the Caribbean reef sharks. Now the real fun begins. I get to wear a stainless steel chainmail suit.
Yeah, that's the back. So you're gonna step into a...
Wait a minute. Wait.
Like here.
Someone got their butt chomped.
Yeah.
That's not good.
They do get abused from time to time. You can sit down.
Wait a minute. Does this stuff work? All right.
If a shark bites me wearing this, only the points of the teeth can get through the links in the metal mesh. Between that and the thickness of my wetsuit, I should be fairly safe from any bites.
I think that's an interesting thing.
This one piece will make 52 layers.
Watch on mobile devices or the big screen. All for free. No subscription required. Download Veely now.
Neil and I are joined by cameraman Tim and Daniela Buttarelli, one of the other senior shark feeders at Stewart Coves. He has a very important job today, to be my safety diver.
You need a sword. You look like a medieval knight.
Neil wears chainmail on his head because, yes, the sharks are big enough to bite your head. Daniela sets me up with a plastic helmet. Neil hits the water first while the rest of us finish gearing up.
Like I'm good to go.
Neil will take the chum box down to the bottom and start feeding. The sharks are used to this routine. Every day, one of the shark feeders comes down with food, so when they hear the boat pull up, all the sharks start to come in from around the reef. Back on the surface, I'm jumping into a shark convention with cameraman Tim right behind me. Caribbean reef sharks have the classic heavy-bodied sharky look with gray over white countershading. They reach 3 meters long, the length of a couch, and well over 100 pounds. As a general rule, these sharks are not aggressive towards divers. But they definitely know that the guy with the bait box is going to feed them. So when Neil shows up with food, it's like someone rang the dinner bell. Within minutes, we're all surrounded by dozens of big sharks. They almost line up to take turns swimming by Neil for a snack. Neil has this down pat. He tells me where to position myself for great shots of the sharks grabbing the fish off the end of his feeding stick. I'm right up in there, close to the feeding, so Daniela's right behind me, keeping an eye on things. Sometimes two sharks go for the same piece at once and they get a little pushy, but in general they're actually pretty good at taking turns. I don't really feel threatened at all. When a small nurse shark wanders into the scene, Neil sees an opportunity. He quickly grabs the shark and flips her upside down. He has to do it quickly because if he doesn't get the shark into tonic immobility fast, she will bend around and bite him. While she's upside down, the nurse shark relaxes. This is classic tonic immobility. But this is a small shark. How would you ever do that with a shark the size of a Caribbean reef shark? I'm about to find out. One of the sharks comes in close and Neil begins to gently stroke the underside of her snout with his fingers, and she calms down. Sharks have pores on their snouts and face called ampullae of Lorenzini. The ampullae of Lorenzini are electroreceptors, tiny organs designed to detect electrical currents in the water. They help sharks hunt in low light by allowing them to sense the minute electrical signatures of living things. Biologists think that Neil's stainless steel glove causes some kind of sensation in the shark's electroreception. It tends to make sharks calm down into a state of tonic immobility. It doesn't mean that they're paralyzed or hypnotized, they're just very mellow, and they're not upside down. If this shark were a cat, she would definitely be purring, and you have to admit, she's kinda cute. Just to show me how relaxed the sharks can get, Neil lifts her up vertically for a shark hug. When the shark's had enough, she perks up and swims away, joining the other sharks for another round of snacks. It's clear that the sharks actually enjoy this. As I film, I notice certain individuals keep coming back to Neil for more attention. They nuzzle right up to him like a kitten. Neil wants to show me how it's done, so I put my camera down and come around. I hate to keep using the cat analogy, but this really is just like rubbing under a cat's chin. I get the feeling she would sit here for a long time, but when Tim brings the big camera in closer, she spooks. But there's no question, that was awesome. I pet a shark. For the next phase of my shark training, Neil gets another shark mellowed out in position and has me get up alongside the shark. While tickling the nose, and with a firm grip on the dorsal fin, all I have to do is try again. Clearly, this is not as easy as it looks. Neil finds another candidate and even proves it can be done. Now all I have to do is not mess it up. I take my position, and hopefully the third time is the charm. Whoa, this thing is heavy. It's no wonder sharks sink. I'm holding a shark. That was really cool. Neil has shown me how to hold a shark, but now it's time for his ultimate demonstration of shark tonic immobility. Finding the right animal in the right mood requires patience. I filmed quite a few impressive shark maneuvers. Not all sharks are up for it. Pretty soon Neil is flipping sharks left and right. Neil could do this all day, and so could the sharks, so cameraman Tim gets himself a front row seat. So far, all of these animals have been female. In general, the females are more cooperative, and it's fairly rare to get a male to do this. But towards the end of the day, even one of the males wants to join the fun with a most impressive one-armed headstand. As the last dive comes to an end and we head back up to the boat, I have to smile because I get to do the coolest stuff. Sure, we struck out with the silky sharks, but I learned how to pick up a shark underwater, and I got to watch in amazement as Neil Harvey demonstrated just how gentle and docile sharks can be. It's just another reason why sharks are so cool. And another reason to fall in love with the blue world.
Don't go away. Jonathan is going scuba diving with astronauts.
Today's adventure takes me to the Johnson Space Center at NASA in Houston, Texas. Here, they train astronauts to work in microgravity by simulating these conditions underwater. Outside, it just looks like a huge warehouse. But inside is the Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, the NBL. It's basically a swimming pool, but nearly the size of a football field. The astronauts are suited up in spacesuits specially modified to go underwater. A crane lifts them into the pool wearing 300 pounds of spacesuit apiece. Meanwhile, I'm getting ready too, but no fancy spacesuit for me. I descend into the clearest water I've ever seen, and it looks like an underwater movie set. The pool is a staggering 40 feet deep, and everywhere I look are full-sized replica sections of the International Space Station. Each astronaut is carefully weighted to be precisely neutrally buoyant. Once weighted properly, the astronauts hover in the water as if floating in the weightlessness of space. Since fins don't work in space, the astronauts don't get to wear them here. They must be moved from task to task by the divers. The divers are also responsible for keeping a careful eye on everything happening. Each astronaut has 4 divers assigned to him or her. 2 are safety divers. Another has a camera with a cable going to the control room. And there are more cameras mounted all over the inside of the pool, too. In the test director room overlooking the pool, staff oversee the safety of the operation. They see virtually everything happening underwater. If anything were to go wrong, the divers can get the astronaut to the surface in only seconds. The test conductor speaks directly to the astronauts through communication gear in their helmets. But powerful underwater speakers allow the safety divers to hear everything that's being said. The point of all this effort is to provide a learning environment for astronauts where they can practice tasks over and over in simulated microgravity before they're required to do it by themselves in space. Tasks that are easy on land become much harder in microgravity, and harder still while wearing a spacesuit. Astronauts have to practice getting into and out of a foot restraint, which is used on spacewalks to provide an anchoring point. It has to be done by feel because in the spacesuit, the astronauts can't actually see their feet. Getting around on the space station mock-up is done the same way it's done in orbit, hand over hand on grab rails. But in space, you don't have a safety diver watching your back. The NBL is an incredibly important training tool for astronauts. It is by far the most realistic way to provide a microgravity training environment on Earth. Every astronaut spends hundreds of hours training in the NBL before going to space. When the day comes to conduct an emergency spacewalk to repair a critical malfunction, the astronauts are ready because of their outstanding underwater training in the neutral buoyancy lab.
This time on Blue World, Jonathan witnesses a pair of giant Pacific octopuses engaged in a knockdown, drag-out fight. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
The giant Pacific octopus is the largest octopus in the world, reaching 150 pounds with a 20-foot arm span. And while you might expect this super cephalopod to live in warm water, it actually lives in the northern Pacific, where the water's typically below 55 degrees Fahrenheit. To begin my introduction to this wonderful 8-armed master of disguise, I head down to the New England Aquarium in Boston to check out their new giant Pacific octopus exhibit, where anyone can see a giant Pacific octopus up close without getting wet. Fortunately, my good friend Bill Murphy is the senior aquarist in the Cold Water Gallery. He invited me behind the scenes to meet the stars of the exhibit.
Hey, Bill. Thanks for having me down to learn about your octopus exhibit.
Absolutely. It's great having you back.
So this is the new behind the scenes. I haven't been here in a couple of years.
I know. This tank was just newly renovated. Back in April, it just opened up for our Tentacle Themes program.
And of course, the stars of the show.
Stars are on this side.
The animals with the tentacles.
Yep. We take around this side, show you right here. This is our octopus exhibit. Nice strong latches. Open door.
Wow. Gotta have some security. So tell me about the AstroTurf.
The AstroTurf is a way to deter them from escaping the tank. They can't get a suction grip on the AstroTurf, so they can't climb the walls to get out.
And if you didn't have this, they would get out.
They would. They're very curious, and they love to explore new areas, so they would just constantly find their way, and they'd climb the walls or climb to a spot and get out.
So they are exactly like Hank.
They are exactly like Hank. They will escape, and they'll find their way.
Wow, that's a very clever way to keep them in there, huh? Does she have a name?
She does. This is Psy.
Psy?
Psy.
How do you spell that?
S-Y.
It's easy to remember. Psy.
Psy.
Okay. All right, Psy. We need some cooperation, but there's going to be something in it for you.
The first thing Bill shows me is how he feeds the octopuses.
Zip tie.
Zip tie and a long pole. It's the easiest way to reach them without getting wet.
Okay.
Just gonna give it a little tap, wake her up.
Yoo-hoo. Oh,
she
she's already
wants it.
got it.
Once she gets a taste of the fish, she comes out for more, and I can really see how big Psy is.
I interact with her like this on a regular basis, so she recognizes me. She also associates me with food because I feed her. You can see how big she is, spreading
Wow.
across the tank.
How big is she? That's like 6 feet across? More than 6 feet.
More than 6 feet across. I probably give her 10 feet across when she's fully stretched out.
And how much do you think she weighs?
I would probably say she weighs about 35 pounds.
That is a big cephalopod. Fishy, fishy!
Give her the fish, she
Yeah.
takes it. She takes it right to her mouth and her beak, which is right in the center of all of her arms.
Well, that was quick.
You want to feed her one? Feed her a shrimp?
A shrimp.
Feed her a shrimp.
Okay, so what do I do?
Just stick it to one of her arms in her suction cups.
Okay.
Let her grab it. Oh, there she goes, and that's
Okay. Must be hard to manipulate all those arms and suckers.
it. They seem to do a good job at it.
So, if I put my hand down, is she gonna suck on?
Yes, she will. So reach out and just kind of touch one little right there. Let her kind of grab onto you.
Oh, that is so cool. Ooh, that's the weirdest feeling ever. And the weird thing about it is that they're cold.
Yep.
Do you think they like the warmth? They like the feel of it? Or they're just curious?
It's good. I think it's a lot of curiosity. They can taste with their suction cups. They're trying. That's how they recognize differences in people, is the taste.
Ah.
A lot of times. They can also recognize people by sight as well, but I think it's just a bit different to people, how they taste and what's going on.
How they taste. How do I taste? I showered this morning. I shouldn't taste too bad. She's working her way up here.
Yep. That's the hard part with when you interact with these things, the animals. You have to be mindful of all 8 of their arms. You can't just look at the one that's on to you. There's other ones that are sneaking up the sides that you have to be aware of as well.
She's trying to get in here. Where's she going? Wow, that is smooth. Smooth and cold. Very cold. This one.
Well, they are very cold animals. They're found in the Pacific Northwest, all the way from Alaska to Northern California.
Oh, hello. I've been squirted.
Yeah, it's one siphon on the bottom where they can go from the left side or to the right side.
And they can point it and squirt you with it. As if on cue. She's like, yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah, that's what we do.
Yeah, she's no dummy. She's listening.
John, you want to do it?
Okay.
So you got a free hand?
Somewhere in here. Give me.
Yep, right that one. Yep.
There we go. Right there. I got this and you haven't. Yoo-hoo. Got it? I was trying to fight her for it. Oh, jeez. Camera destroyed by an octopus. She's got me! Is she doing that on purpose?
Yes.
What a stinker. Oh my goodness, so funny.
Bill gives her a few more fish so she gets enough food for the day. And I can't resist holding hands with her. The suction cups feel so cool.
I'm telling you, that is one cold handshake. That's like shaking hands with a snowman with suction cups. Uh-oh. This can't be good. This is bad. Oh, protect the shirt. Wow, she is strong, man. She is strong. Very strong. Very cool. And heavy.
Yeah.
Bill has to pull Sai's arm off mine, but it doesn't hurt the octopus or me.
Suction cups. That's awesome.
To learn more about the giant Pacific octopus, Bill and I are heading from Boston to Seattle, Octopus Central. 6 hours on a plane and we can dive with the giant Pacific octopus in the actual Pacific. Seattle is a beautiful city right on the shore of Puget Sound. But it is also known for being rainy, like really rainy. So we're not surprised that when we arrive, it's pouring. It's pouring rain in Seattle, but we won't let a little rain spoil our fun. We hop in our rental van and head on over to our first stop, the Seattle Aquarium.
Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Jonathan. Good morning.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Where I meet aquarist Catherine Kegel.
And there's an octopus in here.
There is. There's actually 2 in there.
Let's check it out. All right, thanks.
The Seattle Aquarium is a beautiful facility which focuses most of its exhibits on marine life of the Pacific Northwest. The underwater dome puts the visitor right in the middle of a prolific kelp forest. You can meet sea otters and harbor seals, as well as freshwater life, jellyfish, and more. But I'm most interested in this killer exhibit, the giant Pacific octopus. Catherine introduces me to Lucy.
This is our female octopus, Lucy, and she is probably about 2.5 to almost 3 years old. She's close to about 40 pounds, and she's pretty active this morning. I think she knew you were coming.
Is she always swimming around like this?
So, they tend to be den-dwelling animals out in the wild. So during the day, they're going to be denned up and sleeping. They're active at night and early in the morning, early evening. So it's pretty early in the morning here, so she's out and crawling around.
What do you normally feed her?
So these guys love crab. So out in the wild, they're hunting crab. They're going after clams, shrimp. We have some Dungeness crab for her this morning. So when she settles down, we can give her some crab and see if she'll eat it. Showing off a little bit.
Yeah.
This is kind of a hunting behavior for them. When they're out and they're looking for crab, they're gonna swim and they'll actually balloon down onto their food, trap it. They'll release a toxin that will paralyze the animal so that they can now take it apart piece by piece and eat that crab.
While Lucy is giving us a show, there's another octopus in the tank just chilling out.
Let's see this other guy over here that you've got.
So this is that was our female, and this is our male, Odie.
It's time for Odie to be fed, so Catherine is going to give him a big, delicious crab.
We've got some Dungeness crab here. This is some of their absolute favorite food.
Now that looks like local crab.
It is. This is local crab. A delicacy here in Seattle.
Oh, people eat them too.
Oh, yes.
Okay,
yeah,
so
absolutely.
this is food fit for
This
people.
is human-grade food. Yep, these guys eat better than we do here at the aquarium.
We climb up to the top of the tank, and Catherine suggests I feed Odie the crab.
If I were to feed him, what would I do exactly?
You want to just put him on his sucker discs.
Really?
Yep.
So if I just go like this.
Yep.
Should I just drop it?
Yeah, you can just give it to him. He will take it.
Now he's lost interest in the light, hopefully.
Oh, I wouldn't. He's multi-talented.
He's got 8 arms,
yeah.
dude.
He can multitask with the best
funny.
of them.
So he's got the light.
He's got the light.
And he's got the crab.
He's got,
The next day, we load the van and head out to a popular local dive site. We're joining Catherine and her team from the Seattle Aquarium in their annual Giant Pacific Octopus Survey. The dive site is right across the bay from the city. The octopus surveys are part of an ongoing effort by the aquarium to assess wild octopus populations. So Bill and I put our gear together to join them. We will be diving with dry suits, so we don our warm undergarments in the van. It's not working! I can't get my shoulder in. There we go.
Promise.
In fact, as the only dry place to work, our van has become our portable dive shop.
That's always enjoyable. All right.
I take my camera down to the beach before we put on all the heavy stuff. Once we're suited up, it's time to hit the water. We swim out to deeper water before descending. Sinking into the green Puget Sound water, Bill and I follow Catherine on her octopus hunt. Along the way, we're able to film some spectacular examples of Pacific Northwest marine life. An old pier piling is covered with 2-foot-tall plumose anemones. We find a chimera, otherwise known as a ratfish. The chimera is an ancient cousin to the shark. While it looks more like a bony fish, it has a cartilaginous skeleton like a shark. And while they're fairly common in deep water, the Pacific Northwest is one of the only places where they're found in scuba diving depths. To film this fish is a rare treat. On the bottom, a sea cucumber, a Dungeness crab, a shrimp, a frosted nudibranch, and the lemon peel nudibranch. We drop down deep to the wreck of a small boat. Sometimes there's an octopus seen around this wreck. Sure enough, up by the bow, the unmistakable sign of an octopus den, discarded crab shells. I peek under the boat and look carefully in a hole under the hull. There she is, a large octopus guarding eggs. It's pretty clear, though, she's not coming out. We work our way up shallower to check another octopus hotspot around a pile of rocks. A lingcod watches as we pass by, but then Catherine finds a giant Pacific octopus out and about. It's a small one perched on a rock as if he's using the rock as a lookout. As I'm about to discover, he really likes this rock. From this high vantage point, he can keep an eye out for something to eat. But not far away, another octopus is watching him. This guy wants that rock for himself, and he has a plan. He makes his move, stealthily moving in on the rock. But the king of the hill easily sees him coming and he's not about to give up his rock without a fight. An octopus's only weapon against another octopus is its powerful beak located underneath its arms. Each octopus is attempting to bite the other one with its beak. The challenger retreats to rethink his position. Should he call it a day or give it one last try? That's a really nice rock. He decides to go for it. But it's clear he cannot win this fight and will not take the rock. The challenger retreats. It's good to be the king. But his victory is short-lived. While the challenger ducks into a hole in defeat, another challenger is getting ready to make his move. A third octopus is watching. He's much smaller and wouldn't fare well in a one-on-one confrontation with the larger animal that's defending the rock. His plan is a sneak attack. A stealthy approach underneath the rock. But it doesn't work. Retreat is the only option. The octopus on the rock has gotten used to me, and I can film really close up. But then he starts acting weird, breathing really hard. Have I gotten too close? I realize that a large crab is moving in on his turf, and he's not too happy about it. He squirts the crab with blasts of water. This octopus is either too small to eat this big crab or just not hungry. When the crab doesn't take a hint, the octopus reaches around and tickles the crab from behind. There's more than one way to annoy a crustacean. This octopus could provide hours of entertainment, but Catherine is on the move, so Bill and I follow. On a silty section of seafloor, we find a red octopus, a smaller species. It's balled up to about the size of a fist. In its clutch is a small crab. But how to get the crab back to its den? Never fear, octopus ingenuity. 8 legs and an ability to multitask. It will hold the crab with the inner part of its arms and walk home along the seafloor on the tips of its arms. I could easily stay and film the exciting social lives of octopods all day, but alas, my air supply is limited. It's time to head back to the rainy world above. We work our way up into shallower water. While we do a safety decompression stop at 15 feet, we have plenty to see. Then we surface. My giant Pacific octopus adventure has been quite an experience.
Very strong.
I visited 2 aquaria where I got to learn about this super cephalopod.
Yeah, you can just give it to him.
Then I did dives in Puget Sound where I met them in the wild and even witnessed a spectacular octopus fight. I don't always get this lucky, but when I do, it reminds me why the blue world is my favorite place to be.
This time on Blue World, Jonathan tries out helmet diving. Then he explores the life under oil platforms. But first, investigating shark electro-sensory systems. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
One thing that has always been true about sharks is that they seem to love my camera. Sharks get right up close to the lens. This makes great dramatic footage. And lots of TV shows, not this one, try to use this behavior to make sharks look aggressive. Well, it's not aggression. Sharks have a snout full of pores called ampullae of Lorenzini, whose sole purpose is to detect tiny electrical currents in the water. All living things make tiny electrical currents, and sharks can sense them. They use this skill to help them hunt in complete darkness. My video camera produces a tiny electrical field in the water, and it makes the sharks curious. They're bumping the camera to investigate. During the day, this shark can see me with its eyes. But in pitch darkness, could it still detect my electrical signature? And from how far away? To learn more about how the shark's electro-sensory system works, I've come to one of the sharkiest places in the world, the Bahamas. And I just happen to have brought with me an expert in shark electrosensory systems. Dr. Stephen Kajiura is a shark biologist at Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton. He's going to show me how sharks can sense electricity with a simple experiment.
Basically, what we're trying to do here is simulate the electric field produced by a natural prey item, a little fish or a crab or something. And so what we're doing is by creating an electric field in the environment here, what we'll be able to demonstrate is the sharks orienting to just the electric stimulus. We'll have two identical targets. One will be active, one will be a control treatment, and you'll see that they're going to swim right over the control, ignore it completely, and bite only at the active electric target.
Dr. Kajiura puts the equipment together. We will take it underwater to do some tests with the sharks. Dr. Kajiura, Julia, and I gear up for a dive to set up the experiment. Julia has brought down the plexiglass base. It will be partially buried in the sand so it won't draw attention to itself. Dr. Kajiura connects the electrodes to a cable so he can back up far enough to keep from affecting the shark's behavior. Next, he buries the cables in the sand. Working underwater is slow going. Once everything is set up, he turns on the power. Now a small electric field is emanating from the experiment. Think of it like an invisible campfire on the sandy bottom. It's only warm if you're close. The sharks swim by, but they don't detect it any more than we do. They're way too high above it in the water column to realize that anything is happening. After lunch, Connor, our shark handler, shows up with some bait. He will use the bait to get the sharks closer to our electrical campfire. The sharks are hungry, so they will focus their attention on Connor, close to the sandy bottom. The lemon sharks are swimming close to the bottom now, looking for food. Dr. Kajiura turns on the power and we watch. The very first lemon shark to pass over immediately takes an interest in the plexiglass. It can clearly feel the tiny electrical field. A tiger shark passes half a meter above the experiment and doesn't react. But another lemon shark, cruising just above the sand, homes right in on it. The apparatus is designed to produce an extremely small electrical field, similar to the one generated by a living thing. We are talking about a super tiny current. Shark after shark stops to check it out, even while Connor is feeding the sharks only a few meters away. But only the sharks that are swimming close enough to the sand to feel it. This demonstrates how the electro-sensory system of sharks is only good for close range because the electrical field doesn't carry very far in the water. They need to use their other senses like hearing, eyesight, and scent to get close enough to prey for the electro-sensory system to work.
Don't go away. Jonathan is about to try helmet diving for the first time.
Scuba divers swim through the water with perfect neutral buoyancy, able to hover in place like a fish. SCUBA stands for Self-Contained Underwater Breathing Apparatus. The self-contained part is important. Since scuba divers carry their own air supply and breathe through a small portable regulator, they're free to go wherever they want. But long before scuba was invented, people still dove. Underwater breathing apparatus has been around since the 1820s, when the Dean brothers in England figured out how to pump air down into an airtight helmet and suit. Soon the underwater world became accessible to people. The umbilical to the surface limited mobility, but deep-sea divers, as they were often called, could now perform all kinds of tasks underwater, from construction to sponge collection. The surface-supplied air meant an unlimited air supply. In the 1940s, a training film for the U.S. Army diving program was produced. Helmet diving hadn't changed much in 50 years, but the four-window U.S. Navy Mark V helmet had emerged as the world's best. It was used by the military from 1916 all the way up to 1984. Helmet diving with more advanced modern helmets is still used today for construction, oil rigs, salvage, and other work which might require a diver to be underwater for hours at a time. I want to try it, so cameraman Rick and I head to New Jersey, where the Garden State Underwater Recovery Unit practices helmet diving and sometimes still uses the Mark V helmet for rescue operations. I meet up with Vincent Scarponi and his team at their base, and we head out to the Round Valley Reservoir in Clinton, New Jersey, where I will dive. Helmet diving requires a lot of surface support, so the team has brought 3 boats. We're diving off of a pontoon boat, specially configured as a platform for helmet diving. In just a few minutes, we reach the dive site, and now I have to learn how to don all this gear. Wayne Gerhartz is going to help walk me through it.
Sit right here.
Okay, the first thing you're going to do is put the suit on. We just take the bib out, okay, and then slide it up a little bit. Now stop. It doesn't have to be a lot.
I can see it's getting heavier and heavier.
But that's nothing. Now the weight belt.
This one's only 45.
Only 45 pounds, he says.
What do you want me to do?
Just
now
put your
hands over top. Okay, just hold it like. All right, here we go. I'm almost feeling like I'm getting used to this. Hold your head still. Okay.
Vincent turns on the flow of air, which makes a lot of noise, but at least I can breathe.
Okay.
As they seal me in, I realize that there's no way I can get out of this gear without help, or even open the front window for air. My life is in the hands of the dive tenders. This is more claustrophobic than cave diving. Fortunately, there's an intercom system so we can talk to each other.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Ah, sweet.
I want you to, once we give you 2 taps, I want you to stand up, walk to the ladder, turn around, and go down the ladder backwards.
Okay.
As I turn around to climb down the ladder, I can't see anything, so I'm doing it by feel, and I have to trust what the tenders tell me to do.
Okay. It's a good thing they're small steps.
As I go one step at a time into the water, the tremendous weight of the gear starts to become offset by buoyancy.
It feels so good to get down into weightlessness. All right, where's that descent line? Right here?
So grab the descending line with your right hand, wrap your legs around it, and just proceed slowly.
Wrap my legs around it.
Yeah, you want to lock onto it.
All right. This is cool.
The ladder doesn't go to the bottom, so I basically slide down a rope like I'm going down a fire pole.
Going down the descent line. Clearing the ears. Going down. Going down. I have hit bottom.
Okay.
But the water here is not bad.
A GoPro inside my helmet gives a little bit of an idea what it looks like from inside. You really can't see much.
Wow. You don't have much view out of this thing. You got the side windows, the front window, and
yeah, usually there's not much to see when you're doing construction work.
So I could see my left hand out the left window, and my right hand out the right window. This is pretty cool.
Between the typical lake visibility and such tiny windows, I have no idea where I am or which way I'm going. Cameraman Peter Venutzos is giving me directions.
That way? That way. Okay. Wants me to go this way.
Unlike scuba, which only delivers air when you inhale, there's a constant flow of air through my helmet, although the bubbles that come out the back increase when I exhale.
Man, it's hard work climbing through silt that's up to your knees.
Yes, it is. Yeah, try staying in the clear water.
Ryan. Oh, that's cool. So, I now have my little selfie stick, which is way cool. And it's recording, which is cool. Huh? I don't know. How many deep sea divers in the 1800s had a selfie stick? Oh, I gotta make a major muck action here. And I can get a shot of Peter. Say hi, Peter! All right.
Eventually, it's time for me and my selfie stick to head back up to the boat. Even though I'm wearing over 100 pounds of gear, I'm buoyant enough in the water that I can pull myself right up the rope with one hand. Climbing up the ladder is another story. With every step, more of my gear goes above water. Each step is harder than the next. Getting the helmet and weight off is a relief.
Well, I've done my first dive with the Mark V helmet, and I'm here to tell you that as fun as it was, it's a lot more work than scuba diving. So I might just stick to scuba diving. But wow, underwater in 500 pounds of gear. Somebody give me a torch. I feel like I should build something.
So while helmet diving is not the best way to explore the underwater world, it is an important part of the history of underwater exploration and remains to this day one of the most effective ways to work for extended periods of time in the blue world. And thanks to the incredible effort of these generous members of the Garden State Underwater Recovery Unit, I got to experience diving in a real Mark V helmet and experience for myself the rich history of diving.
Coming up, Jonathan investigates the life under oil platforms.
For more than 100 years, petroleum products have powered our world. While more environmentally friendly technologies like wind and solar are making gains, oil is going to continue to provide most of our energy until newer technology makes it obsolete. One of the many environmental challenges with oil is getting it in the first place. Vast deposits of petroleum are inconveniently located beneath the sea floor. Accidents happen, and sometimes environmental disasters are the result. But drilling for oil at sea does have one environmental benefit. I'm heading to the Gulf of Mexico, But this time, I'm not going to be diving reefs or looking for whale sharks. I'm boarding a dive boat in Freeport, Texas on a mission to dive an oil rig. After a 6-hour run about 100 miles offshore, we reach a decommissioned rig known as High Island 389. Although this platform once produced natural gas, now it's dormant and unused. As a result, we can tie the boat to the rig and dive underneath. Christine and I make our way down the line tied to the structure. Underwater, the steel tubes that make up the structure of the platform don't look like metal at all. They've become entirely encrusted with marine growth. The entire structure is like a huge underwater jungle gym with a soft, fuzzy coating. I fire up my camera and move in for a closer look. Every available square inch of surface area is festooned with life. Sponges, coral, hydroids, bivalves, and dozens of other encrusting species have made the platform home. It has become, in fact, a geometrically symmetrical artificial reef. Like a more conventional coral reef, it has attracted fish as well. Small fish hide in the nooks and crannies while larger fish come in looking for food. The more I explore the marine life of High Island 389, the more I find. A grouper is chilling out. A frantic group of angelfish gorge themselves on abundant sponges. They don't seem to mind me at all. The water here is more than 100 meters deep, so I can only see about the upper third of the structure. Still, the part I can see harbors an unfathomable amount of life. Every square meter contains countless creatures going about their lives in their underwater high-rise apartment building. After an hour of wandering around the structure, it's time to head back to the boat. I do a safety stop on the line for a couple of minutes and then I can head up. After the dive, the crew fills tanks and the captain moves the boat. We're heading a few miles to another platform. Tying up to the platform without crashing into it is a delicate operation. We have received special permission to see how the marine life coexists with an active platform. I hit the water and I'm met by a school of fish as I head over towards the structure. If anything, this platform actually seems to have more fish around it than the last one. The pilings seem to have just as much growth as the decommissioned platform. Because these large platforms are the only shallow water structures out here in the open ocean, they are incredible marine life magnets. Not only do fish love them, but so do divers, fishermen, and conservationists. When a platform is decommissioned, by law it must be removed by its owner within 5 years. But a lot of people say that decommissioned platforms are better off left in place as artificial reefs. High Island 389 should have been taken down in 2013, but efforts to save the structure as an artificial reef have given the platform a reprieve. The oil and gas industry isn't exactly known as being particularly friendly to the environment, but it's not all bad. Oil platforms provide a structure to support magnificent offshore artificial reefs, creating habitat where once there was none. It just goes to show that things are not always what they appear at first, especially in the blue world.
Today on Blue World, Jonathan travels to the Philippines to hunt for a rare octopus in a muck diving adventure. Then he heads to Maine to join the Alewife run. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
The ocean can be a very unforgiving place to live. Every animal needs a strategy to survive, a way to catch food, and a way to keep from becoming food. Different habitats require different strategies. Some animals live in the open ocean. Some live around coral reefs. But one of the most fascinating habitats for cool critters is the sandy seafloor. It seems like there should be nothing here, but in fact there are lots of really interesting animals that have adapted to this unique environment. Diving in these sandy, featureless domains has come to be known as muck diving, even though there usually isn't any actual muck. I'm heading to the Philippines, known for muck diving. One of the most popular mucky destinations is Dumaguete. The muck of Dumaguete is also known to be one of the best places to find one of the rarest and most exotic octopuses in the world, the wonderpuss. Yes, it's really called a wonderpuss. I arrive at Atlantis Resort Dumaguete, situated right on the beach, with 5 days to find a wonderpuss.
The muck that we're diving in here in Dumaguete is actually just sand. This sandy beach continues out into the shallows, and that forms the seafloor where all the critters live. But this sand isn't ordinary sand. It's what they call black sand. You can see it's pretty dark in color. It's not really black, it's really kind of more brown color, and it's speckled with little shiny minerals. This is volcanic sand. It comes from volcanic rock. So it looks a lot different from those white sand beaches in the Bahamas with the sugary white sand. Still, this is the ultimate muck diving substrate.
My first stop is at the dive shop to get my gear set up. I'm not sure they have enough tanks to keep me going, but this ought to work for today. Next, I board the boat for some muck diving adventures. We only drive about 5 minutes from the dock. John Ellerbrock, the guy who builds my awesome gates housings, is on the trip too, testing out some new prototypes. Then it's time to suit up and go look for critters. Cameraman Zach and I hit the water, grab our cameras, and sink down only 25 feet to the bottom. It sure doesn't look like much. I find a crinoid, sometimes called a feather star. This echinoderm is closely related to the sea star, but instead of a small number of fat arms, this guy has dozens of thin arms covered in sticky projections to capture tiny organisms from the water to eat. Because the spiny, sticky crinoid is inedible to most organisms, a small fish, perfectly camouflaged to match its host, lives within the safety of the crinoid's arms. Because most of the muck creatures are pretty small, my camera is set up with a special lens for doing close-ups. Each nudibranch, basically a colorful snail without a shell, is only an inch long. As I move in a tad shallower, I come across an area of seagrass. It's easy to look at this and swim right over without a second glance. But when you're muck diving, you have to slow down and really look. Camouflaged perfectly, a pair of robust ghost pipefish look just like the seagrass they're hiding in. They even sway like grass. Nature doesn't produce camouflage much better than this. A few meters away, I notice my friend Howard Hall filming a clump of Halimeda algae. He must have something good. Halimeda is a type of algae made of rigid, calcified segments that look like leaves. This calcium makes the algae almost inedible to herbivores. So pretty much nothing eats it. The Halimeda ghost pipefish gains protection by looking like this inedible algae. When it wanders away from its Halimeda home, this tiny ghost pipefish stands out like a sore thumb, but predators still think it's just a piece of algae as it wiggles and flops its way to its next hiding spot as a piece of drifting algae would. Another Halimeda, another fish. Seahorses don't like to swim much. They prefer to hang on to things with their prehensile tail. In this case, the Halimeda provides a place to hang out and wait for shrimp to come within striking range. By holding still, the seahorse allows the food to come to it. Speaking of shrimp, there are clouds of them. They're barely larger than a grain of rice, but they feed many of the camouflaged hunters of the muck. Living in a burrow in the sand, a jawfish rarely needs to leave his home. He watches for passing shrimp and jumps out to grab them when they come close. Fish have perfected camouflage to the degree of the flounder. While the flounder is actually lying on its side, in a bizarre twist of evolution, both eyes are on one side of its body, so it can look around for food with both eyes from this position. The eyes are completely independent from each other, like periscopes operated by two different people. On a small coral outcropping, a frogfish actually hunts for dinner by going fishing with a lure attached to its head. Frogfish, which resemble sponges for camouflage, are quite common around Dumaguete. Anemones also manage to find a foothold out in the sand, usually attached to a rock. And where there is an anemone, there are anemone fish taking advantage of a safe place to live. The anemone may look like a lush carpet, but every tentacle is covered in microscopic stinging cells. It will sting and eat soft-bodied animals like fish, but not the anemone fish. which have a special slime on their skin which fools the anemone into not stinging them. The toxin of the anemone is so effective that it wards off moray eels, known as voracious predators. Frolicking only a foot from danger, the anemone fish seems unconcerned. Another anemone looks more like a bath mat, and it attracts a different species of anemone fish called the saddleback. This mated pair is engaged in raising some children. The female has laid hundreds of eggs attached to some rocks at the base of the anemone. Then the male takes over, aerating the eggs every few seconds for 1 to 2 weeks. In the anemone fish world, dads are the primary caregivers. Each egg is the size of a grain of rice, and at this late stage of development, the embryonic fish have beady little eyes visible through the egg cases. I wonder if they can see their dad working so hard to bring them into the world. The anemone has another inhabitant. A porcelain crab also gets protection from the anemone. It never needs to leave the anemone for food. Instead, the crab just hangs off the edge and catches plankton from the water with a pair of appendages that look like baseball mitts. While kneeling on the sand to film a pipefish, I have that feeling that I'm being watched. Wouldn't you know it, only a few feet away, a wonderpuss has poked its eyes out of a hole to see what I'm up to. It slowly emerges from its den in the sand. It's the weirdest, most incredible octopus. And unlike other octopods, which typically make their den under a rock or in a reef, the wonderpuss only lives in the muck environment where it hunts, burrowing straight into the seafloor. The wonderpuss tolerates my camera and lights as it slowly works its way across the sand looking for something to eat. Within seconds, it changes from a brownish color to brightly striped. This distinctive coloration is the easiest way to identify a wonderpuss. And biologists have discovered that no two wonderpusses have the exact same spot pattern on their body and head, so individuals can be identified in this way. I watch as the octopus hunts for a few minutes, then it decides to burrow into a new spot. It can drill its way into the soft sand in very little time. It uses an arm to pull some loose substrate in closer to camouflage the position of the den. And then, the octopus vanishes. Soon it's time to head back to the boat.
Thanks, Jude. You're welcome. That was awesome. Mission accomplished. We found the wonderpuss. Yes! It didn't do much, but it was still amazing to see. Just one of the rarest octopuses in the world. Really cool.
So my trip to Dumaguete is a huge success. The more muck diving I do, the more I enjoy it. I'm a critter nerd. I love to find the wild and weird animals that thrive in this sandy habitat. It's another thing I love about exploring the blue world.
Jonathan is heading to a river in Maine to meet an alewife.
It's spring in New England, and I'm off on an adventure. I'm driving to Pembroke, Maine to witness an amazing spectacle of nature. We pull off the road at a river, a beautiful spot that looks like many rivers in Maine. This is the Pennamequan. In the 1950s, the Pennamequan River was dammed up to create nesting habitat for waterfowl. So above the dam, it's a wide, slow-flowing river. Further up is a lake. But just below the dam, the Pennamequan is quite a bit more turbulent, all the way to the ocean about a mile downstream. Every spring, the river fills with a type of fish called an alewife. Alewives, a kind of herring, are anadromous fish, which means they live in the ocean, but they migrate temporarily into fresh water to spawn. These fish are making their way up the Pennamequan River all the way to Pennamequan Lake to lay their eggs. It's only 8 miles, but the fish have some challenges. First, they have to get through all the rapids. But getting around the dam is only possible because of a series of fish ladders, sometimes called fishways. I'm here to meet up with Chris Bartlett, a Marine Extension Associate from Maine Sea Grant, who is here to make sure that the fish are making it upstream.
Hi, Chris. How you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you too. Welcome to the Pennamequan River.
Wow, it's really flowing, man.
It is. Yeah, we had about an inch of rain, so water levels are up.
So do we have some fish in here?
We have lots of fish. These are alewife.
During the spawning run, Chris or volunteers from the Down East Salmon Federation are here almost every day to check on the fish.
Get in there. Perfect. Thank you.
Feisty.
They are, aren't they?
They're bigger than I expected.
That's an alewife.
Wow.
These days, alewives are not widely eaten by people, but they're an extremely important part of the food chain, both in the ocean and fresh water. Alewives are food for everything from seals to cod and even eagles. But their numbers had been declining for years due to overfishing, pollution, and especially dams in their spawning waterways. Something had to be done about it. In 2014, the Maine Department of Marine Resources tasked Chris with getting a good count of how many fish were making it up to the lake to spawn. Soon, he realized that the fishway was in disrepair. With a little effort and some volunteer help, the alewife had a clear path up the fishway.
We counted 70,000 fish migrating upstream our first year, did repairs to the fishway, and last year we had over 245,000 fish.
Wow. So they're making a comeback.
They are. And it's really great to see.
So, how do you count 245,000 fish? With a clever electronic fish counter placed in a narrow section of the river through which all the fish must pass.
We are now using this resistive counter, which is an electrical device that counts fish swimming through a series of PVC pipes. And those pipes have hose clamps in them that are weakly electrified, and the fish's own electrical conductance will get counted as it swims through the pipe. It's very cool technology. So you can see by looking in the box over the last 24-hour period how many fish have swum through each pipe. So what are you getting for numbers? If you'd like to read them off to me, I'll record them here.
So number 1 is 82. Number 2 is 61. Number 3 is 143. Number 4 is 61. Number 5 is 8. I guess they don't like number 5. Number 6 is 1. They really don't like number 6. Number 7 is 85. Number 8 is 3,292. They really like number 8.
I think they do.
Number 9 is 1,076. And the whole thing runs on a couple car batteries.
It does.
So how long can it run before you have to swap out or charge it? Or
The manufacturer says it can run up to 2 weeks. We typically don't let it run that long. We just want to ensure that we don't lose any data. So that's why we collect it on a daily basis. Once I've recorded the information, I now just reset the counter and it zeroes out. We start all over again.
How often do you read it?
Once a day.
Every day you gotta drive up here and read that?
Well, there's a few of us that are doing it, so I'm on the weekend shift.
Because of the dam, the success of the entire spawning run depends on the fishways.
So Chris, tell me about this fish ladder.
So this is a Daniil-style fishway. So you have a concrete trough that is broken up with these wooden baffles. And you can't see the bottom of the baffles, but it's like a picture frame. And so there's wood on the bottom as well as on the sides. And the wood blocks the current to give the fish a resting spot. So even though it looks like the water is moving very quickly, at the bottom, there's very little current because the wood is blocking the current. So the fish can swim up the fishway one baffle at a time, resting along their way. And so if you were to put your camera into the bottom of the fishway, you would see fish calmly resting before they shoot up through the fast water to take another rest. So that's how the fishway works.
As much fun as it is to watch fish climb the fishway and go through the fish counter, I'm betting it will be more fun to hop in the water with the fish.
Just walking down the street with a 50-pound camera housing. Nothing unusual. Nothing to see here.
While carrying the camera to the water is awkward, at least I don't need any scuba tanks. I don't even need a mask. First, a few quick camera adjustments. And then I join the fish in the river. I'm wading into the Pennamequan River to join the Alewife run. As long as I hold still, the fish get used to me and they treat my camera like just another rock. They swim right up to the lens. With the monitor mounted on top of the camera, I barely even have to get wet. But that 58-degree water makes me glad I put on a wetsuit. It's weird being right in the middle of so many fish that are not afraid. It's not common for me to get so close to a school of fish.
This is amazing!
Eventually, I settle down into a deeper spot and relax. The fish don't even mind my feet. They have spawning to do, and some guy in a wetsuit isn't going to stop them. Due to the efforts of a relatively small number of people who set out to make a difference, the spawning population of alewife on just one river in Maine has more than tripled in only 4 years. It goes to show that sometimes a little effort can make a big difference. And while sitting in a river in Maine may not seem as exotic as many of my filming expeditions, I'm constantly amazed by the new things I learn everywhere I go. Even a small river in down east Maine can be a fantastic journey into the blue world.
Today on Blue World, Jonathan makes an epic trip to Mexico, where he helps rescue a whale and goes eye to eye with great white sharks. Meet Jonathan Bird, one of the world's top underwater nature cinematographers. Traveling the world on assignment for all the major networks, he is an Emmy Award-winning authority on the underwater world. In freshwater or salt, reefs, wrecks, or caves, Jonathan documents the world beneath the waves. Welcome to the Blue World.
Humpback whales are among the largest animals on Earth. They roam all the oceans, making massive migrations between warm tropical water, where they give birth to their young, and colder waters where they feed on more abundant food like small fish and krill. But while the humpback is a mighty creature, it is not invincible. Humpbacks are regularly injured and killed due to human causes such as pollution, ship strikes, and the most deadly, fishing gear entanglement. It's September 2017. The Blue World team is boarding the liveaboard dive boat Sea Escape in Ensenada, Mexico for an adventure filming great white sharks at Guadalupe Island. Guadalupe is a tiny island 150 miles off the coast of the Baja Peninsula in Mexico. It's not easy to reach. My trip begins with a van ride from San Diego, California, down to Ensenada, Mexico, passing some ruggedly beautiful coastline. Once the crew and all the passengers have arrived, we leave the dock and start our 18-hour run to the island. Within a few hours, divers Kitty Edwards and Jamie Matheson have spotted something unusual.
So we were up on the top deck talking about marine debris and ocean conservation and looking for whales, and
all of a sudden I look out and I see an orange buoy. I saw a splash around it and some gray. It looked like it could have been a whale. Told the rest of the group, and we looked out at it for a minute, and lo and behold, it was actually a whale that was entangled in some marine debris.
To get a closer look, I run to the top deck with my camera. Zooming in, I can clearly see a whale pulling a buoy.
Looks like he's dragging a long line or something with a buoy, and then there's a bunch of kelp on it.
Does he come up to breathe?
Yeah.
To get a better view of the situation, we launch our drone.
Lose it. Don't lose it.
From a high vantage point, we can see that the whale is dragging a lot of rope, 2 buoys, and a bunch of kelp that has been snared on the buoy. There's no way this whale will be able to feed dragging this much stuff. It will surely die a slow death of starvation. Our dive master, Benjamin Fernandez Olivari, has a daring plan. He calls another nearby dive boat, the Solmar 5, for assistance, and they send over some of their crew in a small, fast boat called a panga. They pick up Benjamin and 2 other crew members and set out for the whale. When they get close, Benjamin jumps into the water with a knife to cut the rope. The whale doesn't understand what's happening and speeds up. Things are quickly getting dangerous.
It was a little bit scary, man, to be honest with you, because at first I started climbing on the line and she got scared. She started pulling on me.
Like a Nantucket sleigh ride from the whaling days, Benjamin is hanging on while the whale pulls him through the water.
I was holding on to the line of the buoy And as the whale pulls forward, what happens is that you get taken underneath the surface. So I really couldn't breathe many times, so I was like, okay, right now I have to pull down the line and go all the way down to cut it, because if I just hold on to this, what's gonna happen is that I'm not gonna be able to breathe. So if I can't breathe, I'm gonna have to let go. So I rode it for a while like that until I noticed that there was nothing I could do because her tail was right underneath me. So I didn't want it to be in the way of the tail if she got scared, because it's dangerous. She dragged me for a while until I noticed that she was not gonna stop and I was not gonna reach the place I had to, so I let it go. We just decided to follow the whale side by side with the panga for a while, so we could see if she was gonna let us do it, if she was not gonna let us do it, see what's what, you know? When you're in the water with an animal that size, in a panga, with a bunch of people, you need to be careful, you know? You don't want to hurt anybody.
The fact of the matter is that people have been killed attempting to rescue whales from entanglement. These animals are huge and powerful and do not always understand what is happening. Off the Baja Peninsula, our team is attempting to free a whale of fishing gear entanglement. In spite of the danger, the team is making a second attempt. And soon they succeed in cutting the rope, freeing the whale from the buoys and kelp, slowing it down.
How much line was on it? Wow. Good work. Nice work, you guys. Nice. Well done. That's fantastic. Hey, man, good job, brother. Good job, brother.
I've seen this online a million times. And I always think, what would I do if I get caught in a situation like that? And you never know, man, because everybody always says, oh, I would have done that, I would have done this. And you never know what you're gonna do until you get put in a situation like that, in a limit situation. So gladly, everything went well, man. We reacted the way we were supposed to.
With the whale safe and free, the crew of the Salmar 5 return to their boat as heroes. And this marine debris will never endanger another whale. We're a few hours late arriving at Guadalupe to dive with the sharks, but everyone on our boat agrees that it was for a great cause, saving the life of a humpback whale.
One of the greatest places in the world to see great white sharks is Guadalupe Island in Mexico. I haven't been there in 10 years, and so now I'm heading back.
With all the pressure on sharks around the world and overfishing of the oceans, will Guadalupe still be as good as it was back 10 years ago? Within 3 hours of leaving the dock, we come across a whale entangled in fishing gear. The crew mounts a daring rescue, which saves the whale and only costs us a couple hours on our crossing. We are joined by a pod of Pacific white-sided dolphins on the bow as we continue our way west. The next morning, we awake while approaching Guadalupe. The island is spectacular. There is little in the way of vegetation growing on this harsh volcanic rock. About 200 fishermen live on the island in camps here and there, but most of the inhabitants are birds and pinnipeds, seals and sea lions. Because the fish life here is so abundant, the seals and sea lions have plenty of food. There are thousands of them frolicking in the surf. All those big seals and sea lions attract great white sharks. In fact, between the clear water and the massive numbers of sharks, Guadalupe Island is now considered the #1 place in the world to see great white sharks. Our crew anchors the boat and begins the process of getting the cages in the water. We barely have cages in the water before the first shark shows up, wondering what delicious snacks we may have brought. 10 years of interacting with the sharks has taught them that divers mean no harm and usually come bearing gifts. Big, yummy, fishy gifts. The bait wranglers have a tough job. This may seem strange, but they're not trying to feed the sharks. In fact, they're trying to keep the sharks interested enough to stick around without feeding them. If you actually feed the sharks, they fill up on bait and then they leave. So the trick is to keep pulling the bait away at the last minute. It gives the sharks a challenge that they keep pursuing. Every once in a while, though, a shark gets one by doing a stealthy approach. So they manage to grab enough baits to feel encouraged. And the divers love it almost as much as the sharks.
Yeah.
Once the shark action is on, the crew starts putting divers in the cages. I suit up and get ready for action. And of course, when you dive with sharks, you always wear gloves so your hands don't look like bait.
To cover all that skin.
I head down to the swim step with excitement. The sharks are out there. Nothing is quite as exciting as the first step into the cage. But first, I need a weight belt. 50 pounds worth. That keeps me planted on the floor of the cage for stability.
I'm gonna sink like a brick.
I also get a regulator hose attached to my back. The divers breathe from a huge tank of air on the boat. It's easier and more compact than scuba tanks, and we have an unlimited dive time. Dive Master Benjamin Olivari hands me my big Gates camera, and down I go. I get my camera turned on and focused as soon as possible so I'm ready for sharks. Soon, cameraman Tim joins me in the cage. Now we wait. The cage is thrown around in the waves. It's not an easy place to shoot steady video. But the sharks are around and they have a habit of appearing seemingly out of nowhere. It's surprising how easy it is to miss the approach of such a large shark. The solution is to keep an eye on the floating baits. That's what they're after. Take your eye off the bait for 1 second, and you might miss it. Not all the divers can be in the cages at the same time, so we take turns. The people on the boat are getting a great show. But the view from underwater is hard to beat. My big Gates camera is a handful inside the cage, but the action is amazing. It's a wild ride, but everywhere I look, the sharks are awesome. Sometimes a shark gets very persistent about getting a bait. This big male is in a battle of strategy against the bait wrangler. And all the action is playing out right in front of me. In the end, the shark wins. And I have it all in the camera. Every once in a while, a shark takes a little interest in the cage. But for the most part, they only care about the bait. They have no interest in us. Now, you might be wondering why I don't go out of the cage and swim with the sharks. The main reason is because the Mexican government does not allow it. The fact of the matter is that white sharks are incredibly large animals. Even though they probably have no interest whatsoever in biting a diver, it is always a possibility. And even a small bite from an animal this big could spell death. The Mexican government doesn't want anyone getting bitten or killed by sharks at Guadalupe. It's bad for tourism and it's bad for sharks, so we have to stay in the cages. Unfortunately, the wind has kicked up some big ocean swell and it's throwing cameraman Tim and I around in the cage like rag dolls. All we can do is hold on, which is making the shooting really tough. It's time to call it a day. As the sun sets, we plan for tomorrow's diving. It's our second day shark diving at Guadalupe Island in Mexico, and the conditions have calmed down a bit.
Gonna go in the deep cage. It's gonna be awesome.
So the crew decides to deploy the deep cage. While the best shark action is up at the surface where the bait is, you can get a unique view of the action from down below.
Okay, thank you.
And since we can't scuba dive down there without a cage, one of the cages is on a steel cable that can be lowered.
Oh, Ben, can you hand me my camera? It's up on the table. The gates. See you on the flip side.
As they slowly lower the cage down, we all clear our ears. If anyone can't clear their ears, there's a rope we can pull to tell them to stop. Soon I'm in the deep cage, 30 feet below the action and looking up at the other cage. There definitely isn't much shark action down here. Occasionally one of the sharks gets curious and makes a wide pass, but they know we don't have any snacks for them. We mostly just look up at the sharks above. Over 3 days of diving with the white sharks at Guadalupe, I see more than 20 different sharks. Some of them stay with us for hours on end, engaging in the game of trying to steal our baits. Most of the time, the bait wranglers are one step ahead of the sharks, but not always. Looking down the island, I can see as many as 6 other boats here full of divers that have come to experience the world's greatest predator in its natural environment. Guadalupe Island is an enigma in the ocean world. One of the few places where the marine environment seems to be improving. With careful administration by the Mexican government, the amount of marine life, including sharks, seems to be getting larger. In an ocean where things seem to be constantly on the decline, this is a breathtaking piece of good news. So I set out to discover if Guadalupe was as good as it was 10 years ago, and the answer is no. It's better.